Is there anything we're not wearing that's not me?
Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Human Resources. I'm Chris Palmer, MLA for Kings West and chair of this committee. Today, in addition to reviewing appointments to agencies, boards, and commissions, we will hear from witnesses from the Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration, the Minimum Wage Review Committee, and the Canadian Federation of Independent Business regarding the impact of low wages on labour shortages. So I'd at this point like to ask everybody to please put your phones to silent, and I ask all the committee members at this point in time to introduce themselves for the record by stating their name and their constituency. So we'll begin with Ms. Sheehy-Richard.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Melissa Sheehy-Richard. I'm the MLA for Hants West.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Ritzie. I'm the MLA for Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Johnny McDonald. I'm the MLA for Hants East.
Morning, everybody. Nolan Young, MLA for Shelburne.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susie Hansen, and I'm the MLA for Halifax Needham.
Hi, Gary Burrell, Halifax Shabukton.
Good morning and welcome. Tony Ince, MLA for Cole Harbour.
Thank you, everyone. And for the purposes of Hansard, I also recognize the presence of Legislative Counsel Gordon Hebb and, excuse me, Legislative Committee Clerk Judy Kavanagh. I'd like to welcome all of our guests this morning, and protocol of our committee, we do a bit of business at the beginning involving appointments to agencies, boards, and commissions. So our committee will move forward and do that, and then we'll move forward with our guests. So for committee business, I will ask for a motion on the agencies, boards, and commissions. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Department of Advanced Education, I move to recommend that Vincina Mabala be appointed members of the Women in Engineering Scholarship Selection Committee.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. MLA McDonald.
So, Mr. Chair, so I don't have to do that. I'm going to apologize for the names on this thing that I'm probably going to do bad. For the Department of Finance and Treasury Board, I have moved to recommend that DeGersis, Dishmaki, apologize, I'm sure I did bad on that there. Daryl Levesky be appointed members of the Nova Scotia Credit Union Deposit Insurance Corp.
Motion on the table. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Department of Fisheries and Agriculture, I move to recommend that Stefan Colombo and Louis McRae be appointed members of the Nova Scotia Fisheries and Agricultural Loan Board.
Motion on the table. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
For the Department of Health and Wellness, I move to recommend that Simara Koo be appointed public representative of the Board of Nova Scotia College of Dietitians and Nutritionists.
Motion on the table. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Department of Health and Wellness, I move to recommend that Betty Thomas be appointed public representative of the Board of Directors of the Nova Scotia College of Dispensing Optometrists. Optician, sorry, thank you.
Any discussion on the table? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Department of Health and Wellness, I move to recommend that Judith Dirtle be appointed public representative of the Board of Nova Scotia College of Nursing.
Motion on the table. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
Mr. Chair, for the Department of Health and Wellness, I move to recommend that Nina Snyder be appointed public representative of the Board of College of Occupational Therapists of Nova Scotia.
Any discussion for the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Department of Justice, I move to recommend that Fred Collette and Wanda McDonald be appointed part-time directors of the Nova Scotia Legal Aid Commission.
Motion on the table. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And last but not least, for the Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration, I move to recommend that Scotia Baldwin be appointed member, employee representative of the Board of Directors of the Workers' Compensation Board of Nova Scotia.
Motion on the table. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA McDonald, I'm going to recommend a big bonus for you after all that. Very good, sir. So welcome to our guests this morning. And as I stated earlier, our topic is the impact of low wages on labor shortages. And I'd like to ask you all to introduce yourselves at the table, and then we'll go into opening statements. So we can begin with Ms. Kennedy.
Hello, happy to be here this morning. Kim Kennedy, Chief Operating Officer at the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency.
Good morning, Ava Czapalay, Deputy Minister, Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Good morning, Marjorie Davison, Senior Executive Director, Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Good morning, Collette Robert, Employee Representative on the Minimum Wage Review Committee.
Good morning, Louis-Philippe Gauthier, Atlantic Vice President for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business.
Welcome to all of you. Looking forward to the discussion this morning. We'll begin with opening statements, and I believe Deputy Czapalay, you'd like to offer some comments.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to join you for today's committee meeting. Joining me from the department, of course, Marjorie Davison is the Senior Executive Director of Skills and Learning, and Kim Kennedy is the Chief Operating Officer of the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency, and behind me is Cynthia Yazbek, Executive Director of Labour Services. Thanks to the team for being here to support me today. I'm also happy to join this committee with Minimum Wage Review Committee member Collette Robert. This committee played an important role in monitoring and providing recommendations on Nova Scotia's minimum wage, and I'd like to thank Collette and the other committee members for their ongoing work. Also, it was a pleasure to meet Louis-Philippe with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. In our work, we're always focused on understanding perspectives of both workers and businesses, and look forward to other conversations with you. We know that with inflation and the rising cost of living, there's no question that this is a challenging time for Nova Scotians, especially those living on a lower income. We understand the pressure this is putting on families who work hard and who are trying to make ends meet. Helping people by providing free training, skills development, employment resources to find new opportunities could mean higher pay, benefits, and a path to future advancement. And now is a good time for people to pursue those opportunities. As the Nova Scotia economy continues to grow, there's an increased need for workers to fill jobs, particularly in healthcare and skilled trades, and the unemployment rate is at near historic lows. Clearly, this is a marketplace that favors workers, requiring employers to be more creative and competitive in attracting the talent they need. At Labour, Skills and Immigration, we are constantly monitoring our programs and services to ensure we are responding to the needs of workers, businesses, industry sectors, and communities. We are focused on supporting people as they look for work, upskill for new opportunities, and train for emerging labour market needs. We are also equally focused on filling Nova Scotia's labour shortages. We've been updating immigration streams, and we have been a national leader in how we utilize immigration programming to meet the needs of employers and to attract skilled workers. We've also adapted labour market programs to meet the needs of sectors, communities, and impacted groups, and to help Nova Scotians attach to labour force and success in their careers. In some cases, we work with committees to help inform our work, such as the Minimum Wage Review Committee. The committee is made up of employee and employer representatives. They meet annually to make recommendations to the minister in relation to minimum wage rate adjustments. This is no easy task, and we appreciate the thoughtful and careful consideration of the committee members. Earlier this year, the government accepted recommendations on a faster pathway to $15 an hour minimum wage. The recommendations provided a balanced approach that considered both the perspectives of businesses and of workers. On April 1st, the minimum wage increased to $14.50. It will increase again to $15 per hour on October 1st, 2023. And then starting in April, the minimum wage will see a CPI plus 1% rate adjustment beginning in 2024. These new recommendations were in response to the unanticipated rate of inflation and the increased cost of living in 22-23. Government heard from both businesses and employees before making the decision to go to $15 an hour faster. Still, it's important to understand that wages are just one part of the equation when it comes to filling labor needs. Providing flexible programming and wraparound supports to help businesses attract and retain talent, help people train or upskill for new opportunities, and help communities better welcome people into safe and accessible work environments all play critically important roles as well. I would also like to note that Nova Scotia's population has experienced tremendous growth in these past few years. This is an exciting time for our province as we now have well over 1 million residents calling Nova Scotia home. Our work in growing the population is seen as a way to help us respond to labor shortages in key sectors like the skilled trades, where we know that the demand has never been greater. Earlier this month, government opened applications for more opportunity for skilled trades. You'll know that as the MOST program. For those under the age of 30, this program will return their provincial income tax paid on the first $50,000 of income earned in eligible skilled trades and occupations. The skilled trades are vital to our overall economic growth and offer a rewarding and viable career path. This will help attract and retain more of these workers and entice more young people to choose a career path in the skilled trades, most of which provide a very good wage. With more skilled workers choosing Nova Scotia comes opportunities to address labor shortages and grow our economy. But it's not enough to only attract more workers to the province to fill labor gaps. We need to also provide wraparound supports to retain workers and enable workers to transition to new opportunities when the labor market need is there. Supports like modernizing apprenticeship training and continuing to grow a strong, diverse, and highly skilled workforce. Having a community navigator team that helps newcomers connect to work opportunities, communities, and other supports throughout Nova Scotia. Programs that help people find employment or gain funding for occupational training that also includes living allowances, childcare benefits, and other supports to help them be successful. Wage subsidies and business support programs to help employers recruit post-secondary students and develop the talent they need to be successful. And programs like the Nova Scotia School for Adult Learning, the Workplace Education Initiative, the Workplace Innovation and Productivity Skills Incentive, and Skills Online NS that support Nova Scotians in their continued learning and ever-changing work environments. These are just a few of the many examples in how labor, skills, and immigration works to create a thriving province that welcomes and retains greater numbers of people and contributes to a competitive workforce. We will continue to listen, monitor our programs and services with the latest information, and respond in ways that will help Nova Scotians thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Czapalay. Ms. Robert, would you like to share some comments?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So again, my name's Collette Robert. I'm just going to start off by saying a little bit about my background and then the position of the committee itself and a bit of my own perspective. So I grew up in Cole Harbour. Since then, I also lived in Eastern Passage, and for the last 12 years, Halifax has been home for me. I went to SMU. I earned a Bachelor of Science and a Master's of Science. I'm personally passionate about striving to achieve equity, so I understand that everyone comes from a different background and we don't start out life the same. Some of us have to work much harder than others if we're not born into generational wealth. And even race and gender and sex that we're born into impacts our quality of life due to variables like earning potential. All of these different playing cards determine who is most likely set up to, quote unquote, win in life, whether that's living longer, making more money, or other outcomes attached to socioeconomic status. I currently work 2 inconsistent part-time jobs. One pays minimum wage, and the other one doesn't pay much beyond that. And statistically, we know that 46% of people that work minimum wage jobs have higher education. And for those that are looking to upgrade their education, it is near impossible to work part-time minimum wage jobs and support themselves while also going to school. I will also be looking for housing again shortly, which is beyond my budget for what I earn, which I know is also a stress point for a lot of other Nova Scotians. I share this with you not looking for sympathy, but to provide an idea of how my opinion and viewpoint are shaped, and many other Nova Scotians. Being on the Minimum Wage Review Committee is a volunteer role for me. I tend to take on more of those than paid opportunities because I know the influence that these positions have on our community, and it is worth investing my time to speak on behalf of others that can't advocate for themselves. I also sit on the Nova Scotia Advisory Council on the Status of Women and the Canadian Mental Health Association Nova Scotia Division Board. However, today I can share my opinions of either the Minimum Wage Review Committee as a whole or my own individual. I will try to be clear before I share from either perspective. I acknowledge it's a privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to learning from others in the room today. I've sat on the Minimum Wage Review Committee for a total of almost 6 years now. When I began, I was the chair of Students Nova Scotia, so I represented most of the students in the province, and now, as an employee representative, working my minimum wage jobs and that type of thing. Each year, we release a report with recommendations on how and what the minimum wage rate should be at. On one side of the committee table, you have two employer reps who represent business owners. And on the other side of the table, you have the employee representatives. The business reps have serious concerns about being able to pay their employees should the minimum wage rate dramatically increase. There could be solutions to this problem, such as wage subsidy from the government for businesses who demonstrate hardship should the wage increase substantially and become unaffordable for them. As Ava mentioned, the minimum wage is scheduled to increase to $15 in October 2023. Nova Scotians have been asking for years for it to be at this rate, and now it is no longer a livable wage as we see inflation rise, our current housing market crisis, and our healthcare crisis. As you can imagine, it's a hard negotiation between both sides on the Minimum Wage Review Committee table. We have several skilled economists to also help inform us of our decision-making. Another important point brought up by the Minimum Wage Review Committee is Nova Scotians' take-home pay. So we can set the earning wage higher, but the actual take-home pay at the end of the day may be much less based on our high taxation rates. We would like this to be looked at very critically. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robert. Mr. Gauthier, would you like to offer some comments, please?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the invitation today. As the Atlantic Vice President for CFIB, I represent 4,000 small and medium-sized businesses in Nova Scotia. As you can appreciate on this topic of wages and government policy affecting wages, we hear a lot from our members. For over 50 years, CFIB has advocated for what our members want to see as policy at government. And from that perspective, we come to you generally, always, for those that have experienced it before, with data. In other words, what are actually members' thoughts on a specific topic. To the central question of are the low wages in Nova Scotia, and it's not my question, it's the committee's question, affecting the ability of businesses to find labor? My initial comment would be no. The reality is, if you look at the labor market right now, to the words of the Deputy Minister, the province is experiencing one of the tightest labor market. We're basically at full employment. And from that perspective, wages play one component, but the reality is it's not the only component. If we look at where Nova Scotia, even with the information that was provided to the committee in the briefing note, if we look at the average wage in Nova Scotia, is Nova Scotia at comparable levels with provinces of comparable size, with New Brunswick, Manitoba? One would say yes. The reality is we can't compare provinces of different sizes with different economic makeup with provinces that don't fit. For example, Nova Scotia is not Alberta. That's just the reality of the land. There are more jobs in Alberta, for example, where the productivity of those jobs is higher than on the average than the jobs that are available in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or Manitoba. There are discrepancies, there's no question, but Nova Scotia is not at the lowest rung of the ladder in Canada. So I would say that the premise for me is one that I put aside. And from that perspective, I would say, if we look at our data that we gathered during last year, we asked our members, what are you doing to attract labor? And of course, some of our members say that they increase salaries. And it's clear also from other pieces of data, that the wage pressure is up. It continues to be up. Normally it's around 2.2 to 2.5%. We're still above 4% at this point in time. So wages are going up, there's no question. But businesses that increased wages were only met with some success. The reality is, even when you post a job in some positions, in some corners of the province, nobody is answering the call for that position. So that's a reality that businesses have to deal with from the northern end, from CBRM all the way to the southern part of the province. Having said this on minimum wage, because I do believe the conversation is probably going to shift around that, if we look at inflation in Nova Scotia over the last 10 years, inflation's been around 22% over the last 10 years in Nova Scotia. Of course, everybody's preoccupied with what's happening now. But if we look at real wages, the average wage in Nova Scotia, it's gone up 32% over the last 10 years. But minimum wage has gone up 41% in the same period of time. Minimum wage right now is disconnected from CPI. It's disconnected from the real wages in Nova Scotia. So from that perspective, one would hope that eventually that would lead to a conversation of saying, how does Nova Scotia compare to other countries and other provinces in Canada when it comes to where the minimum wage lands compared to the median wage in the province? At this point, at $14.50, you're at 61% of the median wage. When it's at $15 in October, it will be much higher than that. The OECD average is 54%. So when we compare it to the rest of Canada, the number is anywhere from the low mid-50s pushing to the 60s. The reality is there's a point where a decision should be made to make minimum wage reflective of what's actually happening in the labor market. And I would submit to you in closing my opening remarks that the legislation should be changed and that essentially the minimum wage should be pegged to the percentage of the median wage in Nova Scotia. Essentially, you set it, you review it every 2 years, and then you forget it. And that way, at least minimum wage would reflect what's happening within the job market. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. So we will begin our question and answer session, and as per the practice of the committee, I will recognize members by show of hands, and that's how we'll get the questions to you. We would remind our guests when you do answer to wait till the light comes on and I identify you to speak. So we'll begin our question and answer period, and I have MLA Burrell starting out.
Thank you. Ms. Robert, I wanted to ask you about, you brought up the important point of a livable wage, as you described it. And I think that all that has happened since the review committee's December recommendations and the February adoption, the accelerated move towards 15, I think this has brought that concept onto the screen, into the public conversation in a way that it wasn't before. And that's probably especially true because of the pressure of inflation. So there is this great gap for so many people between what they're able to bring in, even with an accelerated minimum wage, and the place of a livable wage. We'll say what a person could live on. In your opinion, does the minimum wage and a livable wage or a living wage, do these two things need to be on a path to come together?
Is that directed to Ms. Robert?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ms. Robert.
To answer your question, Gary, I believe there shouldn't be as large of a discrepancy in it. Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah.
As per the practice of our committee, I will allow for a quick follow-up to your original question, as long as it pertains to the original question. Not a chance to sneak a second question in. So if it's a follow-up, we will allow that. So MLA Burrell for a follow-up.
Well, if we think about the need for them then to move together, do you have some sense, based on your experience with these issues, weighing them in the review committee, of how long that ought to take? How, in rough terms, is this a goal that we should be moving to in the reasonably near future, the alignment of the minimum wage with the living wage?
Ms. Robert.
It's a difficult balance because as much as it would be ideal to aggressively increase the minimum wage so that it's closer to a livable wage, we also have to think about our small business owners and people that are paying those wages and whether or not they can afford to pay their employees, and if they can't, what type of solutions we would have around that to support them. We see a lot of businesses closing, which is very unfortunate, and I think that that would also catalyze that trend as well. In an ideal world, yeah, we would have those numbers merge so that the minimum wage and the livable wage would be closer together, but I think that's not the reality just based on the circumstances right now. Could there be solutions to that? Absolutely, but we would need to put those into practice and look at the data before jumping the number up, I think.
Thank you. MLA Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question will go to LSI. In your opening remarks, you mentioned historic unemployment rates in Nova Scotia. And through some of my research before this committee, I did some Googling, and when you have more jobs than less people, it generally pushes either wages or perks up. But I'm wondering if you could speak a bit about the current unemployment rates and maybe elaborate a bit about the trends you may be seeing.
Deputy Czapalay.
Thank you very much for that question. And it has been pointed out that we do have historic unemployment rates. When I checked just before coming here today, it's around 5.7% unemployment. So that's a low based on, I think, February 2023. So it means that we also have record high employment. So we have almost 500,000 Nova Scotians attached to the workforce right now. So that's a record high. And yet, as been mentioned earlier, we also have people without jobs and jobs without people. And that is the important role of labor skills and immigration, is how can we continue to help people connect to the labor market, and how can we continue to help employers connect to the people who are available to work. So I mentioned in my opening remarks that part of the solution, of course, is to bring in people who meet our labor market needs, who have the skills already and are ready to work. So our economic immigration programs bring in people who have job offers, and they connect to work. And I've mentioned to this committee before, our focus has been on skilled trades and healthcare. But we know that many other sectors are looking for labor, and we also know that there are many people here in Nova Scotia looking for work. And so what can our different support systems do to help them connect to work? So our Nova Scotia Works offices in 53 communities throughout Nova Scotia, helping people in community identify their skills, identify what they need to do in order to attach to work. And also now our Nova Scotia Works officers are looking at how can we help employers find the labor that they need in those communities. So we have lots of work to do, even with our historic unemployment rates, that none of us are relaxing for a moment. We know that there's much more to be done.
Thank you. MLA Ince, you're next.
Thank you. My question is for the Canadian Federation Independent Business. And just before the last session, you sent us a letter highlighting the challenges that many of your members are facing. You had highlighted that there was about 12,000 jobs needed, I think, 12,600 jobs, and that the pandemic had a real effect on their earning potential. Can you give us an idea of what your membership's dealing with now, and maybe the supports needed now to help them get over that hurdle?
Mr. Gauthier.
Well, thank you for the question. The reality is the impact is still there. When we look at our data regularly every month, and we ask our members where are you at now? There's still a substantial amount of business that have not recovered from a revenue perspective. So automatically, what does that mean? They're not making the money that they're supposed to make. On top of that, they literally, in certain sectors, have not regained 100% operational ability, if you will, because of the labor situation. If you look at the debt, the average debt that's been collected by Nova Scotia businesses over the last 3 years, that's another concern, either debt from the federal government programs or the funds that they procured from other means. So debt, ability to operate is still, for some businesses, a reality. Right now, I would say that the question of debt and the question of labor supply are the top elements that are part of their reality. Shortage of labor is number one and has been number one for many months at this point, as you can imagine, as the economy re-kick-started after being shut down by the various health orders of government. So that's the reality that they face themselves in. On top of it, over the last 3 years, of course, unfortunately, businesses have understanding the government's position as to the realities of inflation over the last year and a half, but minimum wage used to be set on April 1st once a year. Now, various governments across Atlantic Canada, including in Nova Scotia, have decided to up it twice a year at this point. So the question of where are we really going, and can we actually hold true a decision of government telling us, well, starting next year, it'll be like this. Well, it seems as if starting like this, it'll be like this next year, is something that we're hearing often. And for us, it's a question of knowing where things are going. To quickly address the question from Member Bureau of a few seconds ago, should minimum wage be aligned with a living wage? Our position would be no at this point. The question is, it should be aligned with a portion of what is the median income in the province, and have minimum wage move at the same levels as the average wages in the province. Wages over the last year and a half have increased substantially. The pressure has been from an inflation perspective. Of course, employees want more, and businesses have responded to that. The data is clear either from our end or from Statistics Canada's end. But there's no question that there are some businesses that are still living under the impact of the pandemic.
Thank you very much. MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy Minister Czapalay, I just want to go back to something that Ms. Robert said in her opening remarks about no S. Sorry, I should know that. There's no S on Richard either. Sorry. I just want to talk about women in particular make up a significant portion of the minimum wage earners. Can you talk a little bit about what work maybe the department's doing to correct some of this imbalance or manage some of this imbalance? Thank you.
Deputy Czapalay.
Well, thank you for that question, and I think you probably know that's a particular passion of mine, and the department is highly focused on ensuring that women and underrepresented groups participate at a higher capacity in the labor market. And so we do know, and we've shared with this committee before, that COVID has had an impact on women and women's place in the workforce, and also on underrepresented groups. And so it's important for us to listen and to understand what is hampering the recovery of women and underrepresented groups in our current labor market. To someone at face value, you look at our labor market, you see a historically low unemployment rate, and people might think that everyone is employed. But our efforts continue to be focused on helping women and underrepresented groups both upskill and reskill, and also we also focus on talking with communities to better understand what is needed to help people connect to the workforce. So it may be the wraparound supports that we've chatted about before, and that can be anything from helping with childcare to helping with transportation, whatever it is that's needed. That's the value of having the Nova Scotia Works offices in those 53 communities. People can go in and talk about any barriers that they may see and face in terms of attaching to work. I would like to just say also that we have a focus on retention, as you know, and helping people stay in the workforce once they're there. And so for people in non-traditional jobs like the skilled trades, if the workplace isn't welcoming, If people don't feel safe and well supported by their employer, they may not stay, or they may hear stories from other people and choose not to engage in the first place. So skilled trades, of course, offer a huge opportunity for Nova Scotians. It's for Nova Scotian women and for underrepresented groups. It's a pathway to a great career. And if people are feeling like they might not be welcomed in a trade, they might not see themselves in that area, then they might not choose to engage there. So we have a number of programs through the Apprenticeship Agency and through our Skills and Learning branch to help connect women and underrepresented groups to the skilled trades and to help educate employers on what a safe and welcoming workplace looks like.
Thank you. MLA Ritzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is directed to the Deputy Minister. Given the significant population growth in Nova Scotia, which we're experiencing currently, can you speak to the trends you're seeing in immigrants choosing Nova Scotia? And can you elaborate on the impact that the Atlantic Immigration Program has had on small businesses?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thanks for that question. So immigration, my favorite topic here, the population has grown by about 44,000 people. So many of you remember in 2014 when we heard the Ivany report and the necessity to grow our population, and I was in that audience too, and I thought, well, there's a tall order, because back in the days our population was declining. So if we did nothing, our population would still be declining, our natural population. So adding 44,000 people to our population since December 2021 is the equivalent of adding a Sydney and a Bridgewater to our population. So we've significantly grown our population. We see our population continuing to grow. And so I've mentioned before the pillars of growing our population. It's attracting immigrants for sure. And we've had our best year ever was last year, and that followed the best year ever. So we attracted about 13,000 immigrants and their families. And then also attracting newcomers from rest of Canada, and then retaining people. And especially retaining our youth. So we had a marketing campaign that targeted Alberta and Ontario and really focused on marketing opportunities in the skilled trades and in the healthcare sectors. And those campaigns were so successful, I think, that Alberta started advertising here. Correct the trend. But we also have been looking at retention, and retention comes down to two things. It comes down to matching people to work that they want to do and are qualified to do, and it also comes down to ensuring that employers are ready to work with newcomers, create a welcoming and safe workplace so that people stay. And so the trends that we're seeing really are focused on more people are coming to Nova Scotia and more people are staying.
Thank you. I have MLA McDonald, then MLA Burrell, and then MLA Hanson. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Robert, that's the proper. Okay, so this is for you. So as you're part of the employee record for the Minimum Wage Review Committee, thank you. Could you explain to the committee how the committee, your committee, wound up dealing with the recommendations, like how they got to them, their negotiation to finally get the recommendations, kind of like how the committee works total? I know you kind of highlighted it, but I figured I'd give you a chance because I'm sure I'm one of many that don't understand it. So, thank you.
Ms. Robert.
Absolutely. So, depending on how much is needed to discuss, to settle our negotiations, to form a recommendation and have at least the majority of us all on the same page, it normally takes, I would say, at least 2 to 3 meetings a year, if not more, of all of us meeting, sharing our perspectives, reevaluating what have we done in the past, where do we stand compared to the other provinces in Canada. There's a lot that goes into the decision making, and then we typically have at least 3 economists that run a bunch of data for us. We'll come back with questions and different shareholders coming to us saying, well, what about this and that? And then so we'll take that, and instead of having to calculate that stuff ourselves again, We get the economists to do that. And then we use all of that information, all of the data, the different perspectives to try to come up with an agreement on where a minimum wage should be. And we do want it to be predictable for Nova Scotians, especially business owners, so they know how much they're paying. But at the same time, again, there's that strain of Nova Scotians that can't live on minimum wage. So it's a back and forth. It's a tough negotiation at the tables, and yeah, it usually takes at least a few full days of meetings and then a bunch of research and data collection outside of that to form the recommendations. And we don't always agree, I should say that. You'll see in past reports that sometimes there's ascending opinions and that type of thing from committee members. Sometimes committee members will withdraw themselves because they can't come to an agreement altogether on the committee. I myself have stayed on the committee despite not always agreeing, because I think it's important to still have that voice there. But yeah, lots of negotiations and trying to find some type of balance. Yeah.
Emma McDonald for a follow-up.
So, Mr. Rober, you mentioned, and I think it's a valid point, because anybody who's watching is going, oh, it's a meeting, like ours are two hours. Your meetings are like a day long. It's not you're coming in for an hour or two, you're in for like 8-10 hours onto it, is what I'm catching. And I think the work that you and the other members are doing should be, like, people should realize it's not oh yeah, it's 3 times a year, hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. So I do want to thank you for staying on the committee, because not always when you're on committees do you get your way. I mean, I've been on the point where people just think I'm crazy on what I come up with ideas on. Then eventually I find out I'm right, but that's okay.
Emily
yeah,
McDonald for your follow-up.
The follow-up was, thank you. The follow-up was, those meetings you have are like days, like full 8-10 hour days, not 2 hours.
I should
Ms. Robert.
It's okay. I should clarify, they can be. So starting out, yes, absolutely. And then once we meet that full day and think about what data we need to inform our decisions, oftentimes it does end up being another full day or so, because after the data is collected and the economists present that data to us and we interpret it and all of those other things. And then, it could end up being 4 or 5 meetings if we still haven't reached a decision and we need more data collected to inform our decision making. And yeah, no problem.
Thank you. MLA Burrow.
Thank you. Mr. Barrow, I wanted to go back and think a little bit more about this question of the relationship of the minimum wage to a livable wage. It seems to me that one of the things, as people are talking more and more about a living wage, one of the things about it that's compelling is its point of reference. Its point of reference is not what anybody else is making anywhere else. It's what your household would require in order to have the basic necessities. And so that's why across Nova Scotia, it's being calculated all the time in different sub-regions of the province. We know, living wage is $20 something, some parts of the province, 22 something in other parts of the province. But the key thing that distinguishes it, I think, is that measuring and calculating what is required in terms of food prices, shelter prices, utility prices, different parts of the province to have the basic necessities. So I'm thinking about, in the work of the minimum wage review committee, can you speak to us about how that matter of people's having the basic necessities of what shelter's costing, what's happening with rent and housing, what's happening with power bills? Can you speak about how that's factored in when the minimum wage is calculated in comparison? As I've said, it's not quite the same, obviously, as the living wage, but surely it must be taken into the calculation. Could you speak about how?
Ms. Robert.
Absolutely. So to expand a bit further, it was mentioned not too long ago that the minimum wage is scheduled to increase twice this year instead of once, as was in the past, and that's quite unpredictable and stressful for people. Well, part of those negotiations was we really want to, increase it faster than it's projected to be based on the formula that we use. And so the business owners did negotiate with us somewhat and say, okay, you know what, that is a bit more of an aggressive jump. Can we break it into at least two parts? So some people have some predictability there. So we definitely recognize that the minimum wage isn't high enough, but I feel like people have been open-minded to the fact that it needs to be higher, and in different ways that we could do that without shocking the system too much, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. MLA Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is to the Deputy Minister. I'm always going to talk about housing because you know that's top of mind, especially in my riding. We know there's a housing crisis here in Nova Scotia, and we have some of the worst vacancy rates across the province. And we have also heard from employers that access to affordable housing is a key barrier to recruiting and retaining folks here in this province. I was glad to hear that we are excited about a growing population because we have been an aging population in previous years, and we want to be able to have some growth so that folks will understand the true meaning of being a maritimer, and we want to attract immigrants here, but I'm hearing from a number of folks that it's really hard to stay here because the housing prices are either too high, there is not enough supply, and there is, even if we have trained nurses or if we have trained folks that are coming in here with those skilled trades, they have nowhere to live. So I'm just, and I know we've had this question before, I'm curious to know, are there any updates or any data on what that looks like now as opposed to the beginning of the year when we had a discussion on housing and immigration previous to this? Are there any huge jumps? Because I know you mentioned that there are some wraparound supports, there are navigators, there are folks that are doing this work, but we can have so many people doing work, but when there's nothing there to give, it's really hard to keep that going. So I'm just curious to know, where are we with that, and are we finding that that's still a barrier for folks to stay?
Deputy Czapalay.
So thank you for your focus on housing, and definitely housing is a critical issue, similar to many other jurisdictions in Canada, and it's one that we need to keep a sharp eye on, so thank you for that. LSI is part of a multi-government department focus on housing, and our piece of that complex issue relates to labor, of course, and part of our thinking is that if we can attract skilled workers, skilled construction workers, skilled people who are skilled in building housing stock, then that will help alleviate some of the restrictions on the housing challenge. And so I will have mentioned to you and others before that we have just had 2 successive campaigns really targeting skilled workers from the rest of Canada in terms of coming here to support the construction of new homes and the renovation of existing properties. And so in addition to that, one of the things that we're focused on as well in terms of our population growth, you mentioned the navigators, is really working to ensure that population growth happens in communities throughout Nova Scotia. And so our navigators are working hard to ensure that people coming to Nova Scotia understand the opportunities in communities all around this province. And that not only includes job opportunities, but it also includes opportunities for housing, for schooling, for services as well. And so the navigators, so our population growth has resulted in about 60% growth in Halifax and 40% growth outside of HRM. So we're very close to where we had hoped to be in terms of our growth. And we continue to encourage creative solutions as well. So it's a normal for groups to phone and indicate that they have a solution in their community for temporary housing. So we know about conference centers, we know about hotels, we know about people who have renovated homes and found other solutions to local housing needs that perhaps wouldn't be necessarily something we would think of when we don't have a shortage of housing. So there's a number of creative solutions in place. So we will continue our efforts to attract people, and we will continue our efforts to work with communities throughout Nova Scotia to help people settle well and settle here permanently.
Thank you very much. Our next three questions will come from MLA Young, MLA Ince, and then MLA Sheehy-Richard. MLA Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll direct my question to CFIB. And considering the current employee-centered labor market environment, what are the factors that business have to consider to provide employees with competitive opportunities?
Mr. Gauthier.
The reality is everything under the sun would be the answer. From a business perspective, you try to differentiate yourself from your competitor next door, from the competitor in the next county. You try to differentiate yourself how? Either through salaries or through the benefit package, or through what's the reality within the business. What type of life will you have within the enterprise? But it runs the gamut, and it depends on the sector and the type of business. For some, it might be the benefits that are more interesting. It might be the number of days off that are available, the number of sick days, and etc. It might be the contribution to the pension plan, you name it, the whole gamut of benefit package. For others, it's the salary. There are some employees that job shop based on salary purely alone. But it's not the only factor, and that's a reality we see through our data based on how are you successful at attracting your labor and what are you doing. You've seen a lot of interesting approaches that have been done by businesses to sell their wares, if you will, to be able to attract labor and retain labor. And don't think anybody in Nova Scotia that's running a business is not aware that they have to be competitive and they have to be really differentiated from their competitors.
MLA Young for a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are you able to share any creative stories or something that you may have heard as an example from businesses that have been competitive in this manner?
Mr. Gauthier.
Adjusting vacation times to hunting times would be one. The reality of what the type of worker that you have, the type of business environment, there's a lot of creativity that you can have as a business owner to be able to deal with your workforce. And there's no question that on the smaller side, you have to be creative. The majority of our members are 10 employees and down. Out of our 4,000 members that we have in Nova Scotia. So the reality is you have to be creative. And on top of it, it's all the data shows it, and it becomes a little bit of a family and etc. So, somebody has to go to a medical exam or take care of a kid. It's not an auto or a punch out, you're losing hours and things like that. There's a lot of flexibility within small businesses, and all the research would bear that over the last decades.
Thank you. Thank you very much. MLA Ince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question will be both for the CFIB and Labor and Skills. Do any of you have a breakdown of what sectors or services are having the most shortages? For example, retail versus the restaurant industry.
Is that for?
For either. Both can answer if they have.
Okay, well, we'll start with Mr. Gauthier. And then anyone else that would like to answer that question?
Just quickly, because the deputy will have a lot of data as well. You're looking at the major constraint would be in the skilled laborers. So you're talking about trucking, you're talking about the trades, and the trades relating back to housing and the ability to just build things in the province. But we can provide you a full detailed breakdown just specifically based on what our members are telling us for Nova Scotia. But I'd let the deputy answer.
Deputy Czapalay.
So thank you for the question. And of course, we're aware that several industries are still recovering from where they were pre-COVID. And so I'll just list a few of the sectors that are not quite where they were in terms of employment levels before COVID. So agriculture and fisheries is still recovering. Construction, as you mentioned, and all aspects of construction. You mentioned truck drivers, include that in the construction sector. Accommodation and food services is still down quite a lot. It's down by about 21% from where it was pre-COVID. And then the retail sector is still recovering. And then I just need to underscore, of course, that employment of women and underrepresented groups is still recovering. So in all sectors.
MLA, is there a follow-up? No. Okay. MLA Sheehy Richard.
Jumping right back in. I wanted to go back because you said about Alberta is now advertising here, and it's funny that you should say that because I had a whole bunch of people like, what's going on? Why is Alberta trying to, promote their province and, maybe take from ours? And I said, not to worry. We've probably got ads similar to that going on there and everywhere else. So, having said that, can you give us a little bit of an update on the Live in Nova Scotia marketing campaign that the department launched to attract skilled trades workers?
Deputy Czapalay.
Yeah, thanks for that. And so, yes, we did run a Live in Nova Scotia marketing campaign. It had 2 phases. I've spoken about the campaign to this committee before, but we were really strategic with the campaign, really targeting skilled workers in the trades and also healthcare workers. And yes, we did focus on Ontario and Alberta. Before the campaign, we did extensive research to find out who would be likely to relocate to Nova Scotia. And so the campaign was very targeted at those who indicated just through research that they would be more likely to relocate here. So the campaign had about 39 million impressions. That means people visiting different aspects of the campaign. So a really big number and a success by any standards in terms of exposure. So people knew, Alberta knew about our campaign, and people were commenting on the campaign. We had 115,000 unique visits to our Live in Nova Scotia website, so clearly not all my mum checking out the website and making sure I was doing the job. We had over 1,000 inquiries, so you can imagine what it would take to someone to see a campaign, see a website thing flick up, and then take the time to write an email. So those people who took the time to write an email got a personal response. So there's over 1,000 individuals who said, I saw what you were advertising. I do such and such for work. I'm interested in relocating to Nova Scotia. Or they picked up the phone and called. And I will say that the Premier, Minister Balser, also called people. And we're very appreciative of that. And you can imagine the shock on the other end of the line when someone said, hi, I'm the Premier calling to encourage you to follow through with your interest. So, we got them to write, we got them to call, so then what do we do? So we connected them immediately, a real person answered the call, found out what it is they wanted. Most people started off with their job or their skill. I'm a carpenter, my partner's an accountant. What do you have here in Nova Scotia? So we worked with the sector associations, we worked with different community organizations, local chambers, local employment groups, and to help connect people directly to work opportunities in that community. And from there, of course, the discussion would go to housing. It would go to, I have kids and these are their hobbies or interests and that kind of thing. So it was all really about targeted approach, helping people find the best match that could be for their family in Nova Scotia. Because our thinking is if people are matched well to a community, then they will settle well. And someone here actually used that phrase, settle well, and I've adopted it now, because having people settle well is the goal. It's not, we can attract lots of people. We can get the 39 million inquiries, but at the end of the day, we want people to settle well. So was the campaign a success? Yes, our population continued to grow, and we can see that our population grew not only with immigrants, but also it grew with people from rest of Canada moving to Nova Scotia.
MLA Sheehy Richard for follow-up.
I do have a very quick follow-up. Is there any data to show what the percentage or maybe what the interest was of folks that maybe were originally from here and had felt they needed to leave for work? Was there an upscale of people that were maybe coming back from Alberta, coming home to Nova Scotia?
Deputy Czapalay.
Of course, with Canadians moving back and forth across the border, we don't really have a way of tracking them other than anecdotes, but we do know that our our youth retention increased, and we also know that our average age in Nova Scotia decreased last August for the first time ever. So those indicators tell us that more young people are seeing opportunities here at home, and they're either staying or they're returning home. And we have anecdotes around both.
Thank you very much. I neglected to mention at the beginning of the meeting that our question and answer period will go till 11:45. So we will have about 45 minutes left for questioning, and then I'll allow you to offer some closing statements if you'd like after that. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one will be for the Deputy Minister. Can you share with us, elaborate a little more on the Welcoming Home Workplace Toolkit that the Department helps employers support and attract workers?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thank you for the question, and certainly I've spoken before on the importance of retention and the importance of the role that safe and welcoming workplaces play in retention. And so it's really important to provide employers with the assets that they need to create a welcoming and safe work environment. And so it's a free online resource that's available for employers, and it includes things like information that's available as well as community contacts. I'm just going to check with my colleagues to see if they would like to, if they have anything on the Welcoming Workplace Toolkit that they'd like to elaborate on.
Ms. Davison.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. The Welcoming Workplace Toolkit is designed not just for employers who are receiving international people into the workplace, but also women in non-traditional occupational areas, trying to grow the equity-deserving, welcoming workplaces for equity-deserving groups. And so the toolkit is very easy to use, doesn't take a lot of time. It's really a beginning point, and hopefully it will spur employers to further learning about how to create welcoming workplaces. And the department does have additional resources to add to that employers can access so they can further their learning. So it's all about the starting point of developing cultural competency in those workplaces. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much. MLA Ritzie, then MLA Burrell, and MLA Hanson will be the next three. So MLA Ritzie.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for the Deputy Minister. It's sort of a follow-up to my first question, really. Could you elaborate on the impact that the Atlantic Immigration Program can and has helped our small businesses?
Deputy Czapalay.
Hey, thank you for the question, and certainly a program that we're very proud of is the Atlantic Immigration Program. You'll remember that it was a pilot for 5 years. It was a very successful pilot that IRCC and the Atlantic provinces engaged in, and then it became a permanent program a year ago, January. And so part of the permanent program has been to designate employers so that they're able to participate in the program. So that process requires the employers to apply to participate in the Atlantic Immigration Program. I'm pleased to report we have almost 800 employers designated in 1 year. That's a lot of employers. And the employers are about, again, 60% in Halifax and 40% are in rural Nova Scotia, outside of HRM, rural Nova Scotia mainly. And so the program supports employers to make job offers to immigrants where they have a need and they can't fill that need locally. And so the program, it's been reported back to us, the program is very easy to use, it's very straightforward, employers like it, and employees like it. And so the program is very, very active, and we're continuing to designate new employers to use the program. And we're starting to see a lot of employees coming to Nova Scotia as a result of job offers by employers who use the program.
Thank you. MLA Burrell.
Thank you. Ms. Robert, I want to ask you a little about your thinking about the economic impact of the decisions, the work of the Minimum Wage Review Committee. It seems to me that minimum wages has become a bigger matter in the economy since we've got into this record high inflation period. I mean, we used to have a kind of a comparative advantage of a sort, I think, in Nova Scotia, that although our wages weren't as high as some other places, our cost of living wasn't either. And we have lost that comparative advantage now. You know, it's as expensive to live here as it is in some very, very major cities, as everybody acknowledges. So I wanted to ask you: isn't it true then that in this situation, it's just a kind of economic common sense that a higher minimum wage is going to improve our capacity to recruit and retain workers and put us in a stronger comparative economic situation in the province, and that therefore this work and these decisions are awfully important?
Ms. Robert.
I'm not denying what you're saying, but I do think it's just one piece of the puzzle. And I think we need to still keep our business owners in mind and all of the other different impacts that come with increasing the minimum wage. Of course it would attract talent, but then a lot of our businesses suffering and shutting down because of it. So I think it's quite a complex puzzle with all these different pieces. So I agree with what you're saying, but I also see the impact in other areas in Nova Scotia that it would have.
Emily Burrell for follow-up.
I'm thinking just, I guess, about the basic economics of supply and demand, and and in our situation, if we have this in our list of assets, that we have a reasonably competitive minimum wage, that when we are competing with, as we are in the kind of average and lower wage jurisdictions with other provinces where cost of living may be lower or general income's higher, that it would improve our position. That's all. I was interested in your thinking about the economic impact, not just the impact on those who are earning minimum wage, but the overall economic impact in the present situation, which I think is positive, of the upward pressure on the minimum wage that your review committee has recommended for over the last year.
Ms. Robert.
Sorry, could you clarify the question?
MLA Burrell.
Yes, certainly. I'm sorry to speak a roundabout way. Yeah, it's the same central thought. I'm just interested in your thinking about how the minimum wage committee's work is having a positive effect in bringing the minimum wage up on the operation of our economy as a whole.
Ms. Robert.
I think in recent years we have increased it at a faster rate than we were supposed to be, if you look back at the reports from previous years. So we do absolutely understand that connection, that if people have more purchasing power, of course it's going to contribute to the economy. So I do agree with you there. However, I'm also mindful of the businesses that can't afford to pay their employees more and will be forced to shut down. So that also has an impact on the economy. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not sure who this would be directed to, but it will probably be the Deputy Minister or as well Ms. Robert, because we talked about earlier, low-wage workers are more likely to be women and more likely to be racialized. And we know that you can't make ends meet on a minimum wage job, even if we tried. And people do a great job at trying their best, even with a full-time, full-year job. If we do better for the poorest among us, we can lift up the entire economy. Can any of the witnesses, which would probably be between the two of you, respond to the fact that raising the minimum wage will disproportionately impact racialized people, women, and the people that they care for in those positions?
We got to figure it out? Okay, we'll go with Ms. Robert.
Absolutely. It would impact immediately the people that are making minimum wage. And as you can see, I think the stats are 56% of those are women. And then if you break it down further into different equity groups, it would have a substantial impact on those groups, increasing their purchasing power and quality of life overall. Absolutely, yeah.
Deputy Czapalay.
Thank you, and thanks for the question and your attention on that subject. And it's a multi-factored approach, and we know that it's not only what people are paid, but also their need for wraparound supports, and also looking at programs that offer training and upskilling and reskilling and all of the things that people need. So we continue to work with communities to listen and to understand what it is that people need, especially women and underrepresented groups, to connect to work in their communities.
Thank you very much. MLA Hansen for follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also, I'm grateful for the comments. I want to also say that, you know, I agree. It's a number of facets that, you know, play into this, but as well, as Ms. Robert had mentioned, you know, you have to look at all the other pieces to the puzzle, because it's not just, you know, just raising the wages, but we know that that is a huge piece to lifting people out of poverty. But as well, we do need to recognize that there are other pieces to that puzzle, i.e. housing, healthcare, and cost of living. So, thank you.
MLA Ince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question is for labor and skills. And is the department looking at other options or other ways to make cost of living better for workers, such as maybe looking at bracket creep?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thank you for the question, and of course, our department is really focused on labor, skills, and immigration, and really about helping people connect to the work that they want to do and can do in communities throughout Nova Scotia, and also ensuring that people have access to the training that they need to either reskill or upskill, and also working with companies who may have a labor force that they want to upskill or reskill to meet the current and future needs of their company. And so whatever we can do to help people connect to work and help work connect to people, and let people stay in their communities if that's what they want to do work, then we're here to help and support that.
Thank you very much. MLA Young, then MLA McDonald, and then MLA Sheehy-Richard. So MLA Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, as you know, 20 years as a tradesperson, and I've taught in the trades at NSCC. I'm just wondering what work the department may be doing with advanced education and Department of Education and Early Childhood Development to promote the skilled trades and in-demand career paths.
Deputy Czapalay.
I'll start, and perhaps my colleague Kim Kennedy with the Apprenticeship Agency can also respond. But thanks for the question. And so there's a lot happening in apprenticeship. It's part of our minister's mandate to modernize apprenticeship, and there's a lot of engagement with both the colleagues in the Apprenticeship Agency, with Marjorie's Skills and Learning Division, with the Nova Scotia Community College, with the sector associations, with a whole range of partners, and of course industry and employers, to determine what does a modern apprenticeship program look like. So we've started by taking a sharp look at apprenticeship, the pre-apprenticeship program at the Nova Scotia Community College. So Minister Balser has set up a panel. It's a large panel consisting of a wide range of partners, both from the Nova Scotia Community College, from industry, from government, to take a look at the pre-apprenticeship program, mainly, and of course, education and advanced education are part of this panel, but working with all of our partners to say, First of all, how can we change the perspective of families and young people when it comes to apprenticeship? How can we help them recognize that that is a great career path earlier? And then how can we help them fast track their way from that point of recognition, I want to go into a skilled trade, to actually following an apprenticeship pathway. So the committee has been absolutely fantastic. We'll have some recommendations for Minister Balser in June, but how can we streamline pre-apprenticeship, both from an attraction and awareness point of view, and getting to make some good solid recommendations. I think do we have time left for Kim to?
We'd love to hear from Ms. Kennedy. Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you. I would highlight some of the work that we've done in the last few years. So we had 2 3-year marketing campaigns for apprenticeship. Many of you would have seen them on sides of buses or on TV. And that was twofold. One is to attract youth to the skilled trades, but also to change the perception, primarily of parents, and sending their children into the skilled trades. We also have a number of youth apprenticeship programs that we offer with industry in 3 of our sectors: motive power, construction, and service, that we deliver every summer for youth in high school. And we have an MOU with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, where we look at programs that are within the high schools. And happy to report we're actually starting some of those experiential programs even earlier at the elementary school and junior high school level.
Thank you. MLA Young for follow-up.
Yeah, just a comment, and I'll eagerly wait till June. But with people that are already in the trades as well, if there's any way to recognize other trades and skills that overlap to transition in, I'll plant the seed now, and we'll talk in the fall, I guess.
MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Robert, so this will be for you. Regarding your recommendation and the information that was taken in creating the annual review, I know you started, can you get into some of the details of, like, you said you had numbers that went to economists, like what numbers and what information was there? And if there's anything like specific to Nova Scotia? I know it's a big ask.
Ms. Robert?
So just to clarify, basically, which data did we seek out to inform the decisions? The data that we sought out to inform our decisions had things we had requested. For example, right now in Nova Scotia, who's earning minimum wage? What sectors is that in? What is the minimum wage across Canada? What formulas are they using to calculate the minimum wage rates? Have they followed them, or have they just put a dramatic increase? If they did put a dramatic increase on that minimum wage rate, what happened in that province and how did that impact their economy? So would it be realistic for us to do something like that? We looked at, everything from CPI to, there's so much data that we requested. So kudos to them for putting it all together for us. That's some of the things that are top of mind, but I can definitely send you a more complete list if you would like.
Thank you. And we would maybe ask you, Ms. Robert, if any of that information that comes about from this discussion today, you can send the information to the clerk, and then that could be disseminated out to...
I'll write to her when the answer transfer comes.
Okay. So the clerk will write to you. Okay. MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back, if it's okay, to Ms. Kennedy. The apprenticeship program and what the work you're doing is pretty exciting for me. And as Ms. Czapalay knows, I have already somebody in the trades, and I have a child graduating who wants to be an electrician. So I just wonder, not just personally, but if you could, for the committee, share a little bit more detail that the work that Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency is doing to support apprentices, perhaps like my son, together with the employers and the industry and the current labor markets that we're seeing.
Ms. Kennedy.
Thanks for the question. So I think the first thing I would highlight is this past June, we changed what's called the ratio. So in the apprenticeship system, most people are used to hearing it as a teacher-student ratio. Ours was 1-to-1, so 1 certified journey person per apprentice. Last June, we changed that to 2-to-1 to provide significantly more opportunities for individuals to enter the skilled trades. That has actually resulted, that combined with some other initiatives that we've been working on to attract people to the trades, resulted in a 36% increase in the number of new apprentices we had last year. I would actually add to that we do have sector-specific initiatives where we'll match employers to individuals who want to enter the apprenticeship system in areas where there's a significant labor market demand, construction being one. And then we also have the promotion efforts, which I spoke about earlier. And once the apprentice is registered, there's a significant amount of financial supports available to those apprentices while they move through their apprenticeship program. So there's programs for each level of an apprenticeship. There's programs to provide financial incentives for tools and books, technology, et cetera, to support those apprentices to certification.
Very good. I think that.
Oh, MLA P. Richard, do you have a follow-up?
Very good. I think as he moves forward and finishes this year, he may be in contact with the department. Thank you.
MLA Burrow.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you, Ms. Czapalay, about the similar question I was just asking Mr. Robert about the economic impact of the minimum wage. It seems that thinking on this has changed a lot in the last couple of years. It wasn't very long ago, I think, when Ontario went to, I think it was $14, there was a lot of kind of the sky is going to fall, you know, the hospitality and retail will crash and so on. But it's turned out that the inflationary impacts, the job loss impacts in a lot of jurisdictions, as they have been a year or two ahead of us on this path, like in BC and Alberta and Ontario, haven't in fact panned out, and that there have been benefits that hadn't been anticipated. What can you say anything about the department's thinking about the general economic benefits for the provincial economy as a whole of robustly moving forward with improvements in the minimum wage?
Deputy Czapalay.
Well, thank you for the question, and also, again, my appreciation to the Minimum Wage Review Committee. I think through Ms. Robert's comments, it's very evident that the committee takes a very careful, well-considered and balanced approach, and as she mentioned, it's an employer and employee balance there. And so our perspective remains that minimum wage is just that, the minimum wage. Getting to $15 an hour by October 1st will put us somewhere in the middle of the other jurisdictions. And I think that Louis-Philippe mentioned that comparable to jurisdictions that are approximately the same size, we're very, very comparable. And so we do know that we're in a competitive labor market position now, and also we do know that companies will likely have to pay more or come up with a combination of benefits and pay that will attract and retain workers. And so I feel that that's perhaps where the economic growth will come from. I had taken a look at sectors that had grown the most. I knew you would ask me which sectors were still suffering, but also I took a look at the sectors that had grown the most. And the sectors that had grown the most were healthcare and also technical sectors like engineering and that kind of sector. So as Nova Scotia's economy continues to grow, we'll be there to support all companies regardless of the sector they're in, and we'll also be there to help all workers regardless of the skill set that they have to participate in the labor market. But I do feel like our economy will see the growth that comes from our growth in the skilled trades, as Ms. Kennedy mentioned, 36% into the apprenticeship system. And we'll see the growth from our healthcare sector, and we'll see the results of that in our economy. But we're going to continue our efforts on all fronts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. MLA Ritzy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this question goes back to Deputy Minister Czapalay. The government has taken measures to reduce the red tape in an effort to mobilize our workforce here in Nova Scotia. Can you tell us a bit more about how addressing regulatory challenges can also help address the labor shortages?
Deputy Czapalay.
So we're big fans of reducing red tape wherever we can, and of course that also plays into supporting people connect to work faster. Our Skills and Learning branch has under their responsibility the Fair Registration Practices Act, otherwise known as FARPA, and that act governs the activities of 49 regulatory bodies, and those 49 regulatory bodies cover 85 occupations approximately. So things like professional occupations, things like chartered accountants, doctors, nurses, and so on. So the regulatory bodies need to ensure that they have standards in place to regulate their profession. So that the idea is that when people come here, they register with their regulatory body, and in doing so, being able to register means that they have the skill set necessary to practice. So assessing credentials is critical to ensure that people have the credentials necessary. The role of our department is to make sure that that's done fairly and transparently. And also, we're providing financial support to help the regulatory bodies do that assessment as quickly as possible. So that's where the red tape reduction piece comes in. So also we have a number of programs. So if the regulatory bodies identify and flag something for us that we feel we can act on, then we'll do that. And so, for example, we offer a program that was recommended by the regulatory body for doctors, saying, we're bringing in the highly skilled physicians, we assess their credentials, and then they go to their workplace and they don't necessarily find it welcoming. Welcoming workplaces are for everybody, right? And so it may be because of culture, it may be because of assumptions being made that a doctor can just slide right into their role and not need the orientation. But we provide funding now to help local organizations create the welcoming workplaces and the nice way to settle for doctors so that they can find themselves well attached to their work and to their communities. So we're engaged on a whole number of fronts.
MLA Ritchie for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Deputy. Just a quick follow-up around how are we supporting immigrants and, again, reducing red tape, more specifically for individuals wanting to go into the trades?
Deputy Czapalay.
I'm looking at my colleagues who'll probably help me out with this question, but it's really important for us to ensure that people who arrive here in Nova Scotia who have a skilled trade find themselves attached to work as quickly as possible. I've mentioned before we have a number of trade employment shows. Trade shows for immigrants who are new to Nova Scotia to help them attach to work. So we invite employers, and then we invite newcomers, and they go around and visit booths and hear about the jobs that are available. And Minister Balser and I were attending one of the employment fairs at Pier 21, and someone walked in and said, "I'm a carpenter and I'm looking for work," and you could have heard a pin drop. Everyone suddenly went silent and was like, okay, watch the stampede. So it's really important for us to help those folks connect to work. Not everyone arrives with documents, and not everyone arrives with documents that are readily accessible. And so one of the programs that we have through the Immigrant Settlement Association, ISANS, is to help employers connect with skilled immigrants and see what those skills are in real time. So we send funding to the employer to help pay for the wages for the first 3 or 4 months, and then the employee gets to demonstrate what their actual skill set is. And if they don't have documents, then they can write a challenge exam. But I'm just going to check with Ms. Kennedy to see if I left anything out.
Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you. So I would just add to that. In the apprenticeship system, individuals can enter at any point, at any time, right from find a job, start from level 1 to I've been working for 5 years in a specific trade to challenging a Red Seal exam. And as the deputy mentioned, documentation is not a must because we have partners to help us assess those skills. That's the beauty of the apprenticeship system because it's a skill-based system where employers teach the skills of the trade.
Thank you very much. MLA Ince.
Thank you. My question is for labor skills. And can you share with us, I know you've been doing some work in trying to get, the information to the younger grades and so on, but can you share with me how you're able to address and reach the African Nova Scotian communities and the Indigenous communities with this?
Deputy Czapalay.
So thank you for the question, and I'll probably ask Ms. Kennedy to help me out with the response. But first, I just want to say that we need everyone's help to help parents and young people understand that skilled trades is a fantastic direction to go in. The average salary for someone going into the skilled trades is around $60,000 a year. And the wealth of opportunities, once they acquire a skilled trade, they can be self-employed, an entrepreneur, they can go in different divisions. You mentioned 2 different trades. Yeah. They can acquire more than one trade. So huge fan of skilled trades, and we're really going to work on helping parents see that opportunity. I had the pleasure of going to the rebranding of the Afrocentric Empowerment Academy in East Preston a few Saturdays ago, and they're doing fantastic work in helping people in the community see the value in skilled trades and directly connect people to opportunities in the apprenticeship system. So working in community with partners, hearing what they have to say, hearing their advice on how we can do better to engage young people, and all people in the skilled trades is really, really important. I'm just going to check with Kim to see if she has some specifics to share.
Ms. Kennedy.
There's a couple of highlights that I would add to that. We have a significant number of partnerships with equity communities across the province. The Aboriginal Peoples Training and Employment Commission helps us with retention supports. So right now, the number of apprentices in the system who identify as an equity deserving group is at about 20.5%. And we've made some great strides in increasing the number of people who enter the system, but our focus now is on retention. So that's where we partner with equity communities to help us with the retention and the completion to certification.
MLA Ince for a follow-up.
Thank you. I know that there are many people in the African Nova Scotian community who have for generations worked in many skilled trades areas, but didn't have their tickets, or is there something that the department is doing to try to bridge that so that those folks can get their tickets or their seals or whatever they need to make sure that they are exactly participating in the economy as well?
Ms. Kennedy.
So as DM Czapalay mentioned, the Afro-Canadian Empowerment Academy, we've had a partnership with them since 2016, where we have what we call the Red Seal program. And that essentially does exactly what you spoke of, and that is to prepare individuals who've been working in the trades for generations to write the Red Seal exam. And while it's important to get people a ticket or a Red Seal certification, it's also important because the individuals from community can now mentor the youth in the community to then also move to get their Red Seal certification. And we're very proud of that effort. And I'm trying to remember the exact number. I believe we've certified 22 people now through that program.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kennedy. MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back a little bit or talk more about if there are programs. I know in my community we have BioVectra, for example. I think I spoke of them before, where they're looking for a significant amount of chemists and scientists. So we know that Dalhousie produces a great amount of those. So are there any programs or initiatives that would connect international students with local employers like BioVectra to provide them with opportunities that would hopefully keep them in the province?
Ms. Davison?
Thank you for the question. What I'll start to talk about is our Graduate to Opportunities program. So we have a couple of wage supplement programs for employers to connect them into these higher wage, higher value types of jobs. And specifically within that sector, we have a significant take-up from employers who are agreeing to take on graduates for 2 years with paying salaries sometimes up to above $60,000 a year. So that's one of our key programs. We actually start connecting with employers in high school. So we have the Summer Skills program, which connects nonprofit employers to students. And then we have co-op with all the universities where we're connecting cooperative students with employers with a wage subsidy. And in terms of non-wage programs, our whole system is geared to support matching employers with their needs with the graduates that we have. And so our deputy has mentioned our Nova Scotia Work Centers, which we have over 50 locations across the province. In those centers, we have added youth liaison positions, and so these positions work directly with the high schools across the province, and they're working with those grade 12 students who want to go directly into work, and then those students to learn about what their career opportunities are in their areas or in the labor market. And we've also added employer engagement specialists across the province as well, and this group is working directly with employers. And you'll see that with our digital channel that we've added, and it was launched in 2020. We are adding now a job matching service for employers. So you'll see over the next couple of years our services for employers grow significantly. And this is in response to the fact that there is a change in terms of who's accessing employment in our province. So we're seeing more people employed, and what we're seeing now is a need to focus on upskilling in our labor market and helping our employers to provide those opportunities, and then helping individuals who are in that workplace who maybe want to go into higher value wage opportunities to have those connections.
Thank you, Ms. Davison. MLA Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to the labor shortages part, when we're talking about the Atlantic Immigration Program, so say an employer is looking to take on XYZ trade that they, what steps would they take in order to try to get a red sealed or a journey person through that program? And just the back part of that is if they get them here, then they could take apprentices on here and grow the market and stuff again. But what would be the steps that the company would take to get them hired on?
Deputy Czapalay.
Yeah, so for employers participating in the Atlantic Immigration Program, they first of all need to be designated as eligible to participate in the program, and then once they have been designated, then they are able to recruit employers, and so employees, and that comes with being able to say, we can't find the skill set locally, we need to go further afield. And so if they're participating in the AIP, then they're looking at immigrants. And so we offer employers the opportunity to participate in our formal outreach. So we have a outreach program that involves, I think it's over 20 career fairs worldwide that we go to, focusing mainly on healthcare, recruitment of healthcare workers and skilled trades workers, but others as well, and offer employers the opportunity to recruit. So for example, we just came back from the Netherlands, and we had a construction company with us on that trip, and they were specifically looking for skilled trades workers. If we do have someone who's a red sealed worker, I'm just going to consult with my colleague, Ms. Kennedy, to see if she can say what happens once they actually arrive here on the ground.
Ms. Kennedy.
So there's two pathways. We've been hearing from employers a lot that certified journey persons are also in high demand. So if somebody arrives here with a specific skill set and a length of time of experience, they apply through what's called a trade qualification process. And through that process, we do the assessment, and then the individuals can challenge the Red Seal exam. But in the meantime, the other pathways are issued temporary work permits to get through that process. So day one, folks can start working when they arrive in the province. The other thing that I would add is that applies to the 13 compulsory trades, which means you must be certified. For the non-compulsory trades, there would be no restriction. However, we would still offer that process to anybody coming in the non-compulsory trades.
Emily Young for a quick follow-up.
Yeah, and just to back it up, how does an employer become designated? What do they have to do?
Deputy Czapalay?
They have to show that their company is real, that that they're real, they exist, and just it's really just a background check is kind of the informal term for that. If everything checks out, they have a positive record for treating employees well, and the company is real and exists, and so on, then that's the designation process. They also have to take the cultural training that's required, and that speaks to the welcoming workplaces that we've spoken about before.
Thank you. I do not have any more questions. Oh, MLA Inns. Well, we're going to give you the last question this morning. MLA Inns.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And this question is for Ms. Robert. And Ms. Robert, you had said that the committee has garnered a lot of data and a lot of information. Within that data, is there anything that highlights or shows any improvement for those that are in African Nova Scotian communities or the Indigenous communities in terms of wage?
Ms. Robert.
Great question. Any improvement within like a certain period of time, like within recent years, or?
2016 till now.
I don't think that they have that specific data, but I think it is safe to say that when you look at socioeconomic status and quality of life, that those are very tightly intertwined, correlated. And knowing that higher portions of African Nova Scotians and Indigenous people are categorized to be in lower socioeconomic status, that would be having an impact on their quality of life. So where I can't give you hard data to say these two populations, we've been watching them over these years and this has been the impact, I don't have that hard data, but I believe that there is related data to show that would have an impact. And I think in the future it's definitely something that we should track and to try to measure the impact that we're having based on wages and different things. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, seeing there are no further questions, we will now ask our guests to make some closing comments if you'd like, and we can begin on this side with Mr. Gauthier if you'd like to offer any closing comments, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you again for the invitation. My closing comments would be this, specifically on the question of minimum wage. I would invite everybody to consider that there are other tools in the toolbox other than a hammer. Because through a lot of the questions that were asked this morning, makes me feel even as a francophone to the old English saying, when you believe the only thing that you have in your hand is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So the question here is, depending on what you try to achieve as legislators, whatever objective that you're trying to achieve for whatever group that is part of the group of people that earn minimum wage, I would invite you to look at all of the tools that are available to you as a government to support the workers that you want to support. Because minimum wage is literally a shotgun approach. It captures a whole series of people. And when we either go in the conversation of a living wage, or should minimum wage reach that, or at what speed it should be reached a living wage, essentially brings foregone conclusion that minimum wage should be a living wage. The question should be, for what part of that cohort, and really which group are we trying to help at this time? So that would be my closing comment. Again, a big thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. Ms. Robert.
In closing, thank you all for your time, your questions, and listening to what we all had to say. We will be at $15 by October, but I do not believe that this is a livable wage. To get to a livable wage, I think there could be solutions to this problem, such as wage subsidy from the government for businesses who demonstrate hardship should the wage increase substantially and become unaffordable to them. As MLA Hansen mentioned and MLA Ince alluded to, it is the equity groups, gender, race, sex, etc., that these changes would impact the most, and they need help from several angles, whether it be having a livable wage, housing, health, and childcare. I would also ask that you take into consideration take-home pay and how that hourly wage does not reflect the take-home pay due to our high taxation rates and what impact this could have for Nova Scotians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robert. And Deputy Czapalay, would you like to offer some closing comments?
I'd just like to thank the committee for their interest and for their insightful comments and questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share the work of labor skills and immigration. We really also appreciate the perspective of the other witnesses, and just wanted to assure you that all efforts will continue on this front, and with particular focus on labor market attachment for underrepresented groups. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and we'd like to thank all of our guests for coming this morning. It was a great discussion. Thank you for expertise and your insight into the discussion. So we thank you for coming. You are now excused, and you can leave. We might take maybe a 2-minute break just to allow our guests to leave, and then we'll just come back to our committee right after that. Thank you. Order. If I could ask our committee members to please come back to the table. We'll just finish off our meeting. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I neglected to ask at the beginning of our meeting if we had other committee business before we moved on with our meeting, but is there any committee business? If not, our next meeting will be next Tuesday as we make our change to the first Tuesday of the month from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Our clerk is very happy. She doesn't have any morning committee meetings anymore. Very good. The topic for that meeting will be training and educational partnerships, training initiatives for physicians, nurses, and CCAs. The witnesses will be Department of Advanced Education, Department of Health and Wellness, Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, Nova Scotia Community College, and the Health Association of Nova Scotia. So with there being no other business, could I have a motion to adjourn, or can I just? I will move that we adjourn this meeting. Thank you.